I'm Katie Button, chef and co-owner of Curate, a Spanish tapas restaurant, and La Bodega by Curate, a Spanish specialty retail food shop in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm going to share with you a recipe for Rostit De Nadal, which is a Catalan-style roasted chicken dish with prunes and brandy and pine nuts. It's typical around the holidays, and I'm going to show you our technique for cooking it sous vide. In the restaurant and at home, sous vide cooking can be really handy. At Curate, we use it oftentimes to be able to take lengthy processes and break them up into shorter sections so that when a dish comes up and a guest orders it in our restaurant, it's ready in no time. At home, the best thing about sous vide is that it creates kind of an unparalleled product, something that's super juicy and tender and delicious. It gives you a larger margin for error for time frames. You don't have to keep checking it. It really frees you up in the kitchen. Talking about this dish specifically, traditionally it would be made just by like a classic kind of braised chicken format. What we do is we brine the chicken and then we marinate the chicken and then we make the sauce and then we bag the sauce with the chicken and cook it sous vide. So that way a dish that would normally take, an hour or so to start to finish, yes, it takes longer in the sous vide because you get a better product, but in the end, the pickup on the line in the restaurant is really quick and you're just looking to brown the chicken skin as the final step. So I'm gonna start and show you this recipe start to finish. The first thing we're going to do is make the brine for the chicken. It's a really simple brine. It's just water and salt. Just gonna bring the water up to a boil and then we're gonna pour it over the salt. All right, the water's boiling. Just gonna pour it over this bowl of salt that I have here. And stir it until the salt dissolves. At this point, I would chill this brine down first and then add my chicken to it and let it brine for about 2 hours. But we have some brine chicken right here ready to go. Now that my chicken has brined, we're gonna make the marinade for it. The marinade consists of these ingredients. We've got a roasted chicken stock. This is a brown chicken stock. It's basically chicken bones and parts that were roasted in the oven until they're really dark in color, like a nice deep brown. And then those go in a pot and they're just barely covered with water and it simmers. That's what gives it this like really dark, rich color to it. We've got brandy, white wine, onion, garlic, and prunes. The best thing about this marinade is it's also going to make up the ingredients of the final sauce of the dish. So this will end up being turned into the sauce after the chicken is done marinating. To make the marinade, we're just going to combine all the ingredients together. Roast chicken stock, white wine, brandy, prunes, some sliced garlic, and some sliced onion. This will get put into cryovac bags with our chicken parts and sealed, and it needs to marinate for 24 hours. I have some marinated chicken already bagged right here, but I wanted to show you so you can see what it looks like. The nice thing about marinating in a cryovac bag, you could just do it in a bowl. You don't have to do this and weight down the chicken on the top, but the nice thing is that when you pull the oxygen out, you're actually gonna force the marinade to go inside the chicken a little bit more. It'll be a little more flavorful this way. Okay, we're ready to make our sauce. The components of the sauce are made up of the marinade components. So after the chicken has marinated in the marinade for 24 hours, we're gonna cut it open and drain the liquid off. I'm gonna take the chicken out from the rest of the vegetables, which will become the basis of our sauce. To make the sauce, I'm gonna turn this burner on, this pan. I have just like a large pan. This is the pan I'm actually gonna finish the chicken in too, so just to make it easier, thought I'd make the sauce in the same pan. A large cast iron pan, you could really use anything. We're gonna put a little bit of olive oil, and I'm gonna strain out over medium heat with a little bit of olive oil. We're gonna cook the onion and the garlic and the prunes until they begin to caramelize. The caramelization of this is what's gonna build the flavor of the final dish. It's also why, you know, I mentioned that we used a brown like chicken stock, like a roast chicken stock. Again, like all this like dark color and flavor is gonna create richness in the final dish and make it tasty and delicious. I can smell the wine and the brandy and the prunes like coming off of the onion and the garlic. It smells really, it's starting to smell really good in here. I feel like in most cultures, the like celebratory holiday-ish dishes or meals made with family and friends are usually longer cooking type procedures. So I love seeing how using sous vide, it's like a really nice way to use the sous vide because you can cook it in the bag and then you've got it ready for service. In our restaurants, it really works well for those types of dishes and makes them just feasible for us to be able to offer them and serve them to our guests. And then at home, the best thing about the sous vide is how clean it is and the fact that, you know, you put everything in a bag and then forget about it while you do the rest of your things in the house. You don't have to look at it or check on it, and then it's perfect when it's done and you don't have to clean anything. You just open a bag. I mean, it's kind of really practical. My pan is looking a little bit dry, so I'm gonna add just a teeny bit more olive oil. In the meantime, I'm gonna talk about the other ingredients that are going in the sauce. This is almost at that point of beginning to caramelize. But the other ingredients that'll go in the sauce, we have the remaining liquid from the marinade. I have some grated tomato, pine nuts, and tomato paste. The grated tomato is literally just like cutting a tomato in half this direction and then taking a box grater and grating it on one side of the box grater until you know it's done, when you get all the way down to the skins and you're left with nothing but the skin and all the pulp is left behind. So I just wanted to show that's how we made this consistency for the tomato. It's kind of a nice technique because when you add it to things, it's like halfway to becoming a sauce, you know? It's easier, faster to cook, and uniform. It cooks really well. It starts to brown and caramelize well. I use it when I'm making like sofrito or other things like the basis of other Spanish style dishes. Okay. Now that the onion and the garlic are all like nice and caramelized, I'm gonna add the tomato paste first. Let that cook with everything for a little bit. We're looking for the tomato paste to kind of develop some flavor and caramelize a little bit as well. Okay, it is now sticking and beginning to brown on the bottom of the pan. And you can see everything's developed this kind of like deep, dark color to it. That is the basis of the flavor for the final dish. I'm gonna take this grated tomato and add it now, and what it's gonna do is deglaze all the bits of the onion and garlic and prunes and tomato paste that have stuck to the bottom of the pan. It'll start that process. At this point, each time we add a new ingredient, we're looking to kind of brown and caramelize that ingredient, building on the flavors that we've already built in the pan. If you were cooking this the traditional method without sous vide, the first thing you would have done is sear off the chicken, and then when you got to this stage, you would have added all of the liquid, from that marinade and covered the chicken with it and then put it in the oven to braise. But the pieces that like the traditional method don't take into account is it doesn't, you're not cryovacuuming the chicken with the marinade, which adds added flavor. You're not cooking it at a lower temperature in the sous vide, which makes it super tender and moist and delicious. And again, as it cooks, it's only gonna like absorb the flavors from the sauce. Okay, now you can see on the bottom of the pan, the tomato that I added is starting to stick and caramelize, and everything's got this kind of deep reddish dark brown color to it. So we're gonna add half of the liquid from the marinade. So this is that brown roasted like chicken stock with the white wine and brandy is what's making up this liquid now. Once you've added half of the marinade, we want to cook this down until almost all of the liquid has evaporated. My husband, Felix, is from Spain, and when I had the opportunity to live and work there for a while, and his mother would make lunch for me sometimes, like before I would go to work, sometimes for both of us. And then there was a time when he was living in LA and I was in Spain and working, and I would go to his mom's house to get like a home cooked meal. And in Spain, like the lunch meal is the big meal of the day. And she would often make like a braised chicken dish. Hers usually had sherry instead of brandy in it or white wine, but still this like is taking me back to those moments, just watching the rich flavors build up in this pan. Okay, all of the liquid has evaporated out of this. So at this point, we're gonna add the rest. And we're just gonna cook this for about 1 to 2 minutes. We don't really wanna reduce it like we did the first time. We're just kind of incorporating some of the flavors and cooking off a little bit of the brandy and the raw brandy and white wine that was left in the other half of the marinade mixture. At this point, I'm gonna add just a little bit of black pepper and salt. It's delicious, and it's definitely cooked down enough. There's none of that raw wine or brandy flavor to it. So I'm gonna turn off the heat. The last step to finishing this sauce is adding some toasted pine nuts to it. Now that the sauce is ready, it's gonna get bagged in cryovac bags and then cooked at 74 degrees Celsius sous vide for 4 hours. An easy way to bag if you have a container that's the right size is you can put your bag inside the container and then load it up that way, but I'm just gonna hold it kind of like I would a piping bag or something. I'm gonna divide up just because I find it easier to divide up legs versus thighs, but since they're cooking the same amount of time, probably doesn't really matter. Once you've got the chicken in the bags, we're gonna put half of the sauce in each. Our chicken has been bagged with our sauce and sealed, and now it's ready to go in the water bath at 74 degrees Celsius for 4 hours. We're gonna turn it off, remove the bags. If you were going to plan to serve this later, you would just take this whole bag and drop it in a big bowl full of ice water, and it would chill down and be safe like really quickly. But we are gonna go ahead and finish the dish right away. So what we're gonna do is just open the bags and pour everything out back into our cast iron skillet. And this is what we're gonna finish browning the skin of the chicken in. In order to get the chicken to brown nicely, I'm gonna pull all the chicken pieces kind of up so that they're sitting out of the liquid and they're facing skin side up. And actually, if I feel like there's too much liquid in here, in order for the skin to brown, I'll just take a little bit. I'll just use a ladle and take a little bit out. Okay, all the chicken is in the pan, the skins are up to the top. I have my oven preheated. I would preheat it to 450. I put it at 425 on convection roast because that'll help brown the chicken on top a little bit better. And we're just gonna pop it in the oven. The chicken's gonna cook in the oven at about 425, 450 for 20 to 30 minutes. The Rostit De Nadal at this point has been in the oven for about 20 minutes, and I've been checking it just to see like how it's browning. As I mentioned earlier, in the restaurant, we pop it in a charcoal oven at a really high temperature, so it takes even less time to get nice and crispy and brown on top. So we're gonna take it out because it's ready. It smells amazing. The like roasted, and it's nice and brown and caramelized, and it smells like garlic and onion and tomato and pine nuts and wine and brandy, and all of those flavors melded together into this delicious dish. To plate it, I have a bowl, and I'm just gonna take out a couple of the pieces so that we can try it out. I'm gonna get down here and get a little bit of everything. Some of the plums and tomato and pine nuts. And that's it. It looks and smells amazing, but really like the benefit of the sous vide technique for this dish is that the chicken is going to be really tender, but not falling apart or falling off the bone. If you went through like a traditional braising method, when you pulled this out, you would have seen the chicken legs with all the meat and skin kind of pulling away from it, and it's falling apart. And this is a little bit juicier, and that's why it it's able to like retain its shape a little bit better. But it comes, I mean, with the least amount of resistance, it pulls straight from the bone. But if you didn't sous vide it, it wouldn't have remained intact like that. The other amazing thing is that I can taste the brandy and the wine like inside the chicken. It's fully like permeating the chicken, the flavors of the sauce from the skin all the way down to the bone. And again, that is something you just cannot get if you're not using the sous vide method. It's the combination of the low temperature cooking and the cryovac bag, like bagging it without oxygen, that forces the flavors to really combine with the chicken. It makes the dish just taste extra special and like something you couldn't replicate at home, but the truth is you can. Thank you so much for joining me today for my demonstration of Rostit De Nadal, a Catalan roast chicken dish with prunes, pine nuts, tomato, brandy, and white wine, cooked via the sous vide method. It's been a pleasure.